Welcome to Toby on Fitness Tech. I wanted to create another video because I saw on Reddit that someone had asked a question, and I'll post the question down below so that you can read the exact details of the question. But I wanted to answer it, especially because the first answer that someone gave, I feel is the wrong answer. And I'll explain to you after I give them the right answer, uh, why I feel that that is actually the wrong answer for this person's situation in their case. But basically, the question, to paraphrase it, is I'm doing sets on the Speediance, and I want to do a set that is longer than my current set. And basically, the Speediance's default setting turns off the weight once you've hit your set goal. So by default, when you buy the Speediance, you unbox it, you bring it out, you turn on the weights. Um, especially if most people's recommendation is you do the strength assessment first. So you go in and you do, go in, you go in and you do this. There's a strength assessment that you can go through. I'm trying to see where that was. Uh, but yes, there's a strength assessment. Is it underneath your profile? It's underneath your profile. You go in, you click your profile, you go in and you do your strength assessment inside here. And after you've done that strength assessment, then here's the strength assessment. So it's if you want to do the strength assessment, it's and you haven't done it yet, it's your profile image. You click, then you go in and you click over here on this arrow on yourself, and then strength assessment is one of the bottom ones. Um, Also, I noticed it has my height wrong, which may actually affect things on here. So height, that is not right. So let's go in and fix that. So I am 6 foot tall, confirm. Okay, so go back. And to answer this person's question, though, they're going in, they're doing that's it's turning off the weight. Well, there's actually a setting for this. And I believe personally that this should be the default setting, and the default setting is wrong. You go into settings, you go into training preferences, and then down here you have this unlimited set. And it's the only thing, by the way, on this entire screen where they give you a question mark to describe what it actually does. And it says after reaching your target reps, uh, you can continue while the counter tracks your progress, and the resistance will release once you stop. Exceeding target reps enhances your 1RM and muscle endurance, and that by default is off. That fundamentally needs to be on. So the default setting for this is just wrong. So what's happening is this person is actually not at the strength they should be at. They're getting their 12 reps, and then they have the ability to do 4 more reps. What's happening is it's turning their weights off. They're skipping immediately to the next set and only doing 6 of them because that's all they could do. Well, that's fundamentally not the way this should work at all, but it's because this setting is actually wrong. They need to go in here and set this unlimited set to on. And then what's going to happen is they're going to do rep number 13, rep number 14, rep number 15. They're going to get fatigued. And then the weights are going to turn off. It's going to up their strength, their 1 rep max, and then up their weight next time they go in and do another set. This will give them the actual weights that they should be at and not the weight that they are at. So if you're setting it to 12 reps and you can hit 15 reps, that means that the actual weight is not adequate for the amount of reps that you should be doing if you're doing straight sets. So that setting is a major game changer and actually should be the default. And it is the default on tonal. And it just should be. I'm assuming they added it after the fact, and that's why it's not the default. But frankly, that unlimited sets should be the default. One thing that you have to realize with the unlimited sets is you can't pause for a long period of time before hitting your next rep. You have to go with the next rep. And that's the same with the Speediance and the tonal. You can't sit there forever like you can whenever you're at 7 or 8 reps when you're halfway through your set. The Speediance will actually wait on you. The tonal won't, by the way. Even if you're at 7 reps, it'll turn the weights off if you're not doing another rep. This one will actually kind of wait on you. And once you get near the end of the set, that's whenever it'll turn the weights off. Uh, but it's just a difference of the way they're kind of designed. But yes, that setting is absolutely essential, in my opinion. Like everyone should have their setting to that unlimited sets option. Again, that's in your settings. You go in settings, training preferences, unlimited sets, turn that on. That'll fix that for this user. And that'll give it the adequate way of doing this. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today is eccentric mode. So eccentric mode on this device is actually different than the eccentric mode on this on the tonal, and it's importantly different. And that is when you're doing eccentric mode on the tonal, when you go up, right? Say I'm bench pressing, I'm going up, and whenever I'm locked out at the edge of my rep, that's when tonal turns on eccentric mode. The Speediance actually turns on the eccentric mode when you start to pull it back a little bit, which I think actually makes more sense from a safety and everything perspective, right? So it kind of gives you the time to prepare to handle the load. So it's a little bit of a different lift. So you're here, tonal would turn it on, and then you're all of a sudden fighting against the new weight. Um, Whereas Speediance, you go here and then it turns it on, and you're fighting against the new weight. It's an important distinction. I would actually prefer Speediance's model of doing that. That way, if I have to sit at the bottom of a rep because I'm very fatigued and I'm at the end of my set, I can kind of sit at the bottom of the rep for a little bit longer before I have it activate my eccentric mode and kick it up and really cause a whole bunch of muscular fatigue. The other thing that I wanted to talk about eccentric mode in general and the way I lift is I turn on eccentric mode and I turn it to almost the max of what the device can do. So what that means again is eccentric mode is so there's two main modes, eccentric mode and chains mode. Eccentric mode is I'm coming up to the top of my lift, I'm going back a little bit, and then it's turning on the weight and it's adding the weight. And as I'm coming down, I'm fighting the resistance of the new heavier weight, right? To cause both the concentric and the eccentric to have a lot of stress on my muscles. I found this to be the safest way to lift for me for not getting injured in general and for causing muscle hypertrophy. So the other way that people like to lift, and this is more strength based, if you want, in my opinion, if you want higher strength overall and less muscle hypertrophy, chains mode is the other option. And chains mode is as I'm coming up, the weight's increasing, increasing, increasing to make the full concentric part of the lift heavier and heavier. This is going to provide you a higher strength quicker. And if you think about it just from just from your mind, it makes sense that it would do that because what's happening is as you're going up, the lift isn't getting any easier. So you're all of a sudden putting way, way more load and you're upping your strength essentially quicker. You're hacking your strength to be quicker, faster because you're carrying more load throughout the same lift. Now, one thing I will say about Speediance in general that is going to be weird is when you crank up the eccentric mode, it does not dial the weight back. And it doesn't calculate that into your 1 RM calculations. So I did the strength assessment. It said how strong I was, and then it adjusted my weights based on that. Then I went in and started to crank up my eccentric mode to where I like it to be, which is pretty much the max. And all of a sudden, I had to start dialing back the weights manually, which then lowered my strength on every individual exercise. Not a big deal because that's the way I always lift. It would be a big deal if I lifted sometimes in eccentric mode, sometimes not in eccentric mode. It's definitely a bug that they don't take that into the calculation when you're doing maximum eccentric mode add additions. So if I go in here and I guess I'll show you really quickly what I'm talking about. So if I go in custom, right, I just added this barbell bench. If I hit start on this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Uh, so in here. right? I'm doing 78 pounds plus 39 pounds of eccentric, right? So I have the eccentric dialed the whole way up on this thing. You can see the green bars the whole way up. So what that means is as he's pulling down, he's going to get one weight. And then when he lifts, just see how fast he lifted up? That's not how I lift. I do a 3 count back up. This is actually, in my opinion, hilariously wrong. So the way he's lifting is not the way I lift. Not bad for strength, but for hypertrophy in general, I want this count to be, see how it's one, one. I want it to be 1, 2, 3. So his 2 reps are one of my reps. So as I'm coming back up, I'm going nice and slow, and I have this full 39 extra pounds, and I'm resisting that as I'm going up and controlling it. The reason why I do this style of lifting instead of the style of lifting he's doing is specifically in jujitsu, there's a lot of resistance involved, and there's a lot of just, I want to get stronger in this version of the lift and in the eccentric version of the lift to kind of be more well-rounded and to have a better, um, better hypertrophy overall, in my opinion. And it just feels safer to have a lower weight with a higher eccentric. So that's the general gist of how I do my lifts. Now, this is 78. This was over 90 before I added this eccentric, and I had to have it adjust my strength score down on each of these lifts, which I'm totally okay with. That's not a problem for me. I don't mind what the values here are. I mind that they're going up. The other thing that you'll notice whenever I started this, this is a very odd. So I have, if I could show you my, can I show you the full, I think it's move playlist. Yeah. So move playlist. What I'm doing is I'm doing lat pull downs, reverse grip, um, seated and seated two, like I'm doing all seated motions, but I'm doing two up, two with it up high, and then two with it down low. And then I'm bringing it back up high and doing the same lift. And you might ask, well, why am I doing the same lifts twice? Well, what I figured out is I want to be able to do warm ups, but I want my warm ups to be calculated off my 1 rep max. So, how do you do that on Speediance, right? It turns out you can do it, but it's a little bit tricky. So if I go back out of this, so that's not how you go out of it. Click end and work out. So if I go back out of this and I go in and if I go in here, um, actually I have to go into edit for it to show you. Sorry. So I have to go the whole way into edit for it to show you how I have this set up. If I want to get warm up sets calculated on my 1 rep max, I do that on Speediance. Right? It is possible. It's just a little different than I expected. What's happening here is I'm setting it so there's these 3 presets: gain muscle, stamina, and strength. The reason why you have to use one of these presets is because then it's going to set your weights based on your 1 rep max with any of these 3. And what I found out is if you set it to stamina, it forces your training between 12 or 13 and some, let me see what the actual top end value is. I think it's 25, but let me see if it's 20 or 25. So if I go in here, delete this, okay, it's 20. So it's between 13 and 20. And if I set it to the minimum value there, 13, and I set the weight to 20, what that actually means mathematically on the Speediance is I'm setting it to my 1 RM of 20 reps while I'm doing 13 reps, meaning it's lighter. By the way, that was very confusing whenever I got started on the Speediance. I didn't realize that this 20 is representative of 20 reps. So essentially, I'm at 7 reps in reserve. And 7 reps in reserve is essentially a warm up set. Um, so the way to do that is stamina, 20, and 13, because that's kind of the choices you have to make. And then I set the rest to 30 seconds. I set it to the minimum possible because I don't actually need much rest between my warm up sets. And typically I'll skip that, right? I end up skipping it. But then what I do whenever I get into my actual working sets is I go into gain muscle and I set it to 12 and 13, meaning I set it to 1 RM. So I set everything in general to 1 RM. And then the question is, well, how do you ever progressively overload if everything's set to 1 RM? Goes back to the original question. I have unlimited sets turned on. If I hit 14, I'm hitting a new 1 RM. So if I'm feeling strong that day and I feel like I'm going to be strong continuously after that, I'm going to hit 14 reps on my 12 rep set. I'm going to get a new 1 RM, and then everything on this is going to get recalculated to the new values when I come back in. That's the beauty of this device. Now we'll get into the comment that I think is flat out wrong. So someone posted that, oh, I just go into free lift mode and I do all my own stuff. It's like at that point in time, you bought the wrong device. In my opinion, if you were going to do that, you should have bought the Voltras. So there's a Voltra device that plugs into a squat rack, and that device has eccentric mode, has everything that this has, but it hooks into a squat rack itself. It's obviously a tiny little device that hooks in, and it provides all of the value of this. But the thing it doesn't have is the digital readout. It's not a screen like this. It's not this kind of setup, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I'll put the picture of the thing below, and then I'll put the link to the Garage Gym review of the Voltras, and you can get a better picture of why I think that'd be the right device for you. And by the way, I thought about using the Voltras, but if I bought the Voltras, I'd have to keep my spreadsheets. The whole goal of this device is to not have my spreadsheets. And what that person's answer was is go back to your spreadsheets. And I just think that's the wrong answer, especially when this device can do everything that you would ever want to do. You just have to learn the settings. And it does require a little bit more setup to get it exactly the way I would want it, where I have a warm up set and then I have a working set. And it seems like this works. I was testing it out this morning. I did this lift before I went into jujitsu. And sure enough, this works perfectly for giving me warm ups and giving me the warm ups are a little heavier than I'm used to, which is probably a good thing. I should be warming up with a little bit more weight than I did in the past. And then obviously the working sets are pretty heavy. But yeah, I wanted to go over how I lift now, how I do eccentric mode, how the weight turns on at a different point than it would on something like the tonal, which is a meaningful difference. The value of that unlimited set option, I mean, that should be the default. This person shouldn't have even had that question because the default should be unlimited sets. It should not be turning off the weight when you hit your rep count. It should definitely be leaving it on until you decide. And what that would mean is the person would get heavier weights next time they come in, and they would be progressively overloading at the reps that they were expected to be doing. The other thing that I would strongly recommend everyone do if they're doing these custom workouts is for sure using these gain muscle, stamina, or strength options, depending on your goal set. And honestly, my recommendation would be to go in here if you want to do warm-up sets, use stamina, use 20 RM, use 13 as your reps because you have to be the furthest away from your 1 RM as possible and and go that route with this. I still have them in eccentric mode for that. And that's the way I like to lift. I'm going to be entering all the rest of my lifts that I had on the tonal later this week. So I might show you guys a video of that. But if I see questions like this on Reddit that I think there's really valuable and long-winded answers to, because the simple answer is go in and set that setting, but there's a deeper answer of you should be progressively overloading. That shouldn't be happening where you're doing 16 reps at a given weight. It should be adding more weight. And the reason why it's not is because you're doing is because of that setting. I mean, it's literally not adding more weight because of that setting, which is set wrong. So if that setting was turned the way it should be, all of a sudden it'd be adding more weight and you'd be back in your rep range that you wanted to be in. I mean, the goal of setting up a custom workout or even a general workout is for it to figure out the weights that you should be using for that specific workout. That's the functional idea of these things. When you go into free lift mode, if you're in here and you're only in here, my personal opinion is this isn't the right machine. The Voltras are just, I think, a better concept for you. And I actually thought about buying the Voltras and putting squat racks on my walls. So I have a squat rack already. Well, I have two racks already, one in my basement, one outside. And I thought about putting one on each of the walls and then moving the Voltras around because that would actually be a cheaper buying two squat racks for my walls, one in my living room and one in my office, and then one Voltra to begin with, and then buying a second one would actually give me all the weight I needed and give me the freedom and flexibility to work out anywhere in my house with this kind of eccentric chains. I would assume they bought this machine because they wanted eccentric and chains mode. Otherwise, you don't even need this machine. Just buy free weights. But if you want the eccentric mode, that kind of stuff that you can only get with a digital one, I actually think that would be a better purchase, unless you need the tight compact space that this thing takes up. Then I could see you justifying this for just free lift mode, but also how are you tracking that? That means that you're tracking all of this on spreadsheets, which was my goal to eliminate the spreadsheets and not have to do that anymore. When I turned off my tonal membership, I had to go back to spreadsheets. It was not fun. This is the way I wanted to go. Thank you for watching my video. If you like this video or find that I have any informational content, if you have any questions, anything that you'd like me to answer about this device or anything else I have, the tonal and any other devices, the power blocks that I have in front of me, any of that kind of stuff, shoot me a comment down below, and I'll try to either answer it in a video if it's going to be long-winded, or just answer it directly if it's going to be quick. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. That'll be a huge help to me.